Hey everybody, it's Jason with Parallel Reality coming back with you here today with an article from a new website called Fandom Pulse. It is a pop culture website started by the man whose name you see in right here, John Delarose, from December 17th, this particular article. And I thought about talking about this because this is something that's been going on, or at least this topic has been going on for years now, where people on the what is perceived, I will say, as the right side of the political aisle are saying exactly what the title of this article is, which I'll get to in a second. And where people on the left side, especially the far left side of the political aisle, are like, nope, everything's good. So the truth is that, well, as this title says, the comic industry is dying. And comic sales are in massive decline, despite what journal Heidi McDonald says. And for those of you listening, if you don't know who Heidi McDonald is, she reports for a site called the Comics Beat. I believe it's actually her site. She's an extreme far leftist that anything anybody on the perceived right side of the political spectrum says, she automatically comes out and is like, nope, that's not happening. That's not a thing. And she's known for being exceedingly corrupt. I mean, there are tons of articles and videos out there you can find out about this woman. She's a gaslighter extraordinaire. So let's go ahead and see what John Delarose here has to say. All right. So he says fake news comic journal Heidi McDonald for Comics Beat did damage control for the mainstream comic industry this week, declaring victory for her friends in the industry against the hordes of comic shop owners coming out of the woodwork to talk to Mark Miller about how badly comics are performing. So just so you know what this is referencing, first, Mark Miller. If you don't know who that is, he's a man who started as a comic book writer and has since transcended the industry, and he is much larger than the industry. He's the guy who's responsible right now for, if you've seen movies or heard of movies called, like Kick-Ass or Kingsman, The Secret Service, and on Netflix they had Jupiter's Circle. That's him. He's the guy who created all those properties, and there's so many other ones that I can go through and name, but again, this guy, he's known as, he's just a great writer. I mean, everything they read is going to be like, like it's like action packed, and you're just like, it's like watching like a 2 hour action movie that just never stops. So I mean, it's just all good. Nothing. He doesn't do bad stuff. Mostly independent stuff now. But anyway, I'm geeking out on Mark Miller. But anyway, what this is referencing is that there was a man for, I don't remember the guy's name, it was Glenn something, and I'm sure his name will pop up in this article somewhere. But he was the owner of a comic shop, and he had just made comments saying that writers in the industry now need to stop putting themselves into stories. We want to read about Iron Man. We don't want to read about you and what you did. So what happened is that Mark Miller reached out to this man and actually did, like, I think it was like a half an hour to an hour, something like that, interview with the guy, just asking him just general questions. And Mark Miller was legitimately trying to figure out, like, how do we fix the industry, because he recognizes that it's dying. So that's kind of what this is all coming out. And then Heidi McDonald's was coming out and being like, well, no, what they said just isn't true. And it's like, there's literally no evidence to support what she's saying, but she's going to go with it because that's what she does. So we're going to get back to the paragraph here. And it says, in the article, comics aren't dying, but they are changing, and that's got people scared. McDonald gushes about a report claiming comic sales doubled from 2020 to 2021 and grew even more in 2022, but her commentary is extremely misleading, and that's what she does. It says, in the period between 2020 and 2021, something changed, and it wasn't just people who were buying nearly $1 billion more of comics from Marvel and DC like the industry wants you to believe. In 2021, ICV2, which is, I believe, the website or that compiles the data for the comic industry about like sales and things like that. So they stated that analyst methodology for estimating sales changed. While they used to report actual sales numbers through diamond distribution, new distributors don't report their numbers and use estimates to create the report. So yeah, these days we don't actually know what sales are on certain titles. I think there still is a report that just says like, here's what was the type and number two, three, four, all the way down, but we don't like actually know what the numbers are. But because of this, but you've seen up until they stopped reporting the actual sales numbers, you'd seen comics, like the number one comic these days would probably sell in the low hundreds of thousands. I mean, like the low 100,000s of copies. Like we're talking like just over 100,000 copies. Whereas like 100,000 copies even a decade ago was something where it's like you needed to get that to at least get in like the top 10. Um, so yeah, I mean the industry is dying, and again, there's nothing to support Benny McDonald saying that it isn't. So it says on top of merely estimating comic shop sales, they've changed by adding in far more manga, YA books like Dog Man from Scholastic, and crowdfunds into the mix to make the numbers look bigger, even though all of these categories existed before, just not in the sales report. Yeah, so what Eddie McDonald did, as the article said from John Bellerose, is that they're taking other things that they never counted before and adding them in order to beef up the numbers. And now they're saying, "Oh, look, see, we told you it wasn't dying." And it's like, yeah, but you basically moved the goalposts, and now you're trying to claim that all this stuff that you never counted before counts now. So nice try, but we see right through you. So it says, looking into the ICV2 2021 and 22 reports, one finds that periodicals from companies like Marvel and DC Comics fell in 2021 sales and that in 2022. The growth peaked around the middle of the year and sales began a decline industry wide. And that didn't stop mainstream industry professionals from echoing McDonald's write up to try to dunk on Miller, and the comic retailers issued strong warnings about the content being produced by mainstream American comics. Yeah, and Mark Miller, since then, has done interviews with other comics retailers, other very prominent comics retailers, and they've essentially had the same responses to what the original Glenn guy that I was talking about before did to everything. And these folks in the industry are still like, nope, it's not happening. Says former Nightwing reader Tim Seeley shared an article, or shared their article, stating, "There's some great stuff in here, but what sticks with me is the idea that we need more ongoing series, not more miniseries. Stars. I do not want to do these short series. I would love for HS, or it's not slash, I'm sorry, that's actually Tim Seeley's personal, like, creator-owned property, or the alternates, or Local Men to go on for a very long time, and I'm not familiar with those series at all. Um, then he posts the same thing. Says he continues in a long thread about his ideas for ongoing series, but the reality of the industry is that series aren't lasting very long. Back in June, Steve Orlando admitted that sales are struggling, stating it was difficult for a series to reach 15 issues, even with the property coming off a Disney Plus TV series like Scarlet Witch. Long series don't pencil. Long series don't pencil, echoed by Marvel in a recent Avengers Inc. series being solicited as ongoing and canceled after 5 issues. Long series don't pencil. I don't get that part, but yeah, I remember seeing this, that what they like Marvel had solicited this Scarlet Witch series being it's an ongoing series, and then it got canceled after 5 issues, basically because nobody was reading it. That's what happens. So it's embattled IDW editor Heather Hunters, who is like basically patient zero of all the bad stuff everywhere in the comic book industry. Go look them up, trust me, and go specifically go to the YouTube channel Comics Matter by your boy Zach, and just search for Heather Antos. Trust me, you'll have hours of content about the stuff this chick has done. So she gave the most tone deaf take of all, which is not surprising. Dishonestly posting at the ICV2 chart without context to a commenter who said American comic sales are declining. She said, "You're welcome," acting like somehow she is contributing to growth when IDW Publishing has cut their entire creator-owned line, engaged in massive layoffs this year to stay afloat. And they were also delisted from the New York Stock Exchange. And she's one of these people that everywhere she goes, failure follows her, and she acts like she's some sort of bigwig in the industry. Like she has no idea what she's talking about. Because mainstream industry professionals don't want to admit they're on the Titanic and they've already hit the iceberg. That iceberg is manga and YA books that don't act as current event American politics lectures to their fans, which a lot of comic books these days do, unfortunately. Says thinly disguised with the superhero skin. Unless things change, like retailers who complained to Mark Miller want, we'll only see comic sales get to a point where comic shops go out of business. And what do you think of Henry McDonald's comic sales report for the mainstream industry? Leave a comment and let us know. See what some of the comments say. And people are fed up with this crap, and they're willing to entertain themselves with media from a completely different country, yeah, like manga, basically. And the change of methodology, yeah. So essentially, like the article says here, is that this comic book industry is in fact dying. The one person who's trying to save it is Mark Miller, at least in the industry itself, it seems. And we're talking about these are guys that are from the generation of comics creators that probably go back to like the 90s. Okay, whereas the newer folks are just kind of like they have very narcissistic attitudes, very much like your opinion doesn't mean anything, fan. We shouldn't ever have to listen to you. That's why they feel this way towards storage, and Heidi McDonald is one of those people. Whereas, Mark Miller is from a group, he started writing comics in the 90s. So, so he's from that group, and, he's a guy in his 50s. And there's a lot of guys that are still producing comics now that, that are this, from the same generation as Mark Miller. And there was a link here I saw to something, or is it right here? No, that wasn't it. The Rob Liefeld one. Oh, I thought I saw something with Rob Liefeld's name in it. I don't remember. Yeah, here it is. Go see about what Rob Liefeld said. If you don't know who he is, he's a huge name in the comic book industry, especially historically, like going back. Like his heyday was in the late 80s and early 90s, or I should say all throughout the 90s. Um, working on New Mutants and X-Force. He's the guy who created Deadpool and Cable. Um, so people know who he is, and I'm sure I'm not going to link on this article now, but go look up, click on that to see what was said as well. And he also did an interview a few nights ago on the Pop XP channel on YouTube with Billy Tucci, who is also a very prominent comic book creator. He created a book called SHI. And it was very enlightening as well. So all these guys from that generation agree that there's something wrong and it needs to be fixed before it dies. Meanwhile, you have idiots like Heidi McDonald that are like, no, we're just going to say that everything is fine by artificially boosting, putting in other numbers because or extra things. So you can see 2019, and it went down from 2020, but then somehow it still went up even through the pandemic, which is doubtful. Yeah, I even talked to my comic book shop owner who stayed open during the pandemic, and I still went in there and I asked him how sales were going. And I've gone to this shop since the mid 90s. And he was like, and so I've known the guy that long. So he said that he's like, back issues are flying off the shelves. He's like, new stuff isn't doing too hot. So, and I'm in a pretty, like I said, I'm in the northwest suburbs of Chicago. It's a pretty populated area here. He's in a very good location across the street from an elementary school. So he's got prime property. And he's like, yeah, even new sales are down. So yeah, I guess I don't really have much more to say about this other than don't listen to Heidi McDonald, and the industry is dying, and it absolutely needs to be saved. So let me know what you think in the comments below about this. Like, share, subscribe, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.